Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tosin Opeoluwa. If you're watching the replay, thank you so much for joining. And if you're able to join live, thank you so much. Like my culture, I will not wait. I'm just going to go ahead and share what I need to share, and then we move forward from there. Um, what happened was recently I was looking through, a chart, and I saw, people saying so many things about the fact that some parents, I think it's kind of story, and then the person put their own narrative about the story, and they talk about how it's dangerous, how kids become over dependent, and all that, and all that. Um, One of the questions I like to ask every parent is this: if your way of correcting a child is by beating or flogging them every time, let me ask you this. When you can no longer beat them, what will be the method you'll be using to correct them? Because when people are saying things, we only say things from short sight. We are not far-sighted. We're not thinking ahead of time. We're not thinking about what will happen in the future. The way you treat your children now is the way they will treat you when you are very old and you can no longer do anything to them. So if you don't have the capacity to beat them anymore, or they outgrow beating, what will you do? Yes, parents, people go through things before they have their children. I mean, you can't tell me that a woman who waited for 10 years before they have their child will take a child to school and expect a teacher to flog their child. Let me tell you something. One of the things that I've seen in the past was we have seen people that actually beat their children to death. We've seen people who does that. We've seen teachers that beat a student to death. Actually, when I was I think it was in my secondary school, we actually had a riot, at the time, because one of the students actually died. I can't really remember what happened, but one of the narrative was that the principal was beating the child, and then the child went home and there's something went wrong. Now, let me quickly say this. I have 3 points for you to actually stop beating a child unnecessarily. Honestly, I, if my children do something wrong, while anytime I'm with them anyway, I do, my hand is very fast. I can just give them the Yoruba people say you songwe, you just give them one like this and reset their brain. Now, recently, as I begin to grow, and I remember one day, I think David was 4 and Esther was 3. And I was going through so much at the time, and I went to see a woman of God. And while we were there, David was jumping up and down, not knowing what was going on. And then the woman of God said something, and it clinged to my heart. She said, leave the child alone because he's actually a child. And that is the truth. A child will always be a child. You don't have to beat them to correct them. Because when you don't have the capacity to beat them again, what will you do? What will you do? Because you won't be able to beat them forever. Say, for example, they turn 18, or you live in a society like the Western world where we are here. If you can't you can't beat a child here. Now, if you're living in a society like this, how will you correct a child? For crying out loud, in the first thing that is expected of every parent is this, and every teacher actually. When a child does something that is wrong, the first thing first we want to do is to ask them question. When we ask them question, see, the reason why those children, you keep beating them, is because they are not developing, you're not developing the wisdom part of their life. Because you are simply beating them to cover what they are doing. You are covering it. Because that act you are beating them for, they won't do it at all. They won't do it now. But guess what? They are piling it up. And that's why you see lots of bullying, even in corporate world. You see lots of bullies, even in marketplaces. Because you were beating them, you were not correcting them. You were not changing anything. So when you don't have the capacity to beat them anymore, those attitudes, they will come up and they will start misbehaving in places in our society. So when you ask question, why did you do this? What is the reason? What's your motive? They will tell you. Sometimes they will innocently tell you the stupid reason why they did what they did. Now, what will you do if you are a wise parent or if you are a wise teacher? The first thing you want to do is to tell them the consequence of what they are doing. Sometimes when a purpose of a thing is not known, abuse is inevitable. So says Dr. Miles Monroe of blessed memory. These children, some of them don't even know the reason why they are in school in the first place. It's you parents that send them to school, just go to school, let me rest. In fact, sometimes parents don't even know the reason why you send those children to school. Maybe you just want them to maybe become something in the future. Or sometimes maybe you just want to rest. Like some of us, we take our 6-month-old baby to the daycare, we take our 18-month-old to school simply because we want to rest. We want to be able to do something, especially the stay-at-home moms. When these children do something wrong, ask them the reason why they do it. Once they know the reason and you tell them the consequence, you will see that they will change. Because when people understand the consequence of what they are doing, they have the tendency to change unless there is something else there. So if you had prayer to explaining consequence to children, they will understand and start doing better. Number 2 that I want us to do is most things that make us beat a child is more about us, not even about the child. Sometimes you finish beating the child and you look at yourself, you start regretting. How many of us have felt that way before? Let me know. Like you finish beating a child and you're like, why did I beat this child for God's sake? Because it's actually about you. You were coming from the office and then somebody gave a narrative that you were coming from the office because your boss was angry with you. And then you get home when you were yelling at people while you were driving. And then when you go home, you kicked the dog. You know, it's more about you. So when you are angry so much to the point that you were beating a child to the extent that you injured them, that is anger. You have problem. That's a problem on your part. It's not even a problem on the child's part. So when you constantly have to beat a child, something is wrong with you. I'm being serious now. Something is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with the child. If you have cause to beat a child for everything, every time, it's about you. It's not about the child. Because there are several other ways by which you can correct a child. Let me give you an example. I have the capacity to lock my child's phone. So when grandma asks them to do something and they are not doing it, and they are with the phone, I have the capacity to lock the phone and ensure that they do what they were supposed to do. There are several ways by which you can deal with your children. You just need to understand them. And that takes me to the next point. Everyone has a love language. Your children have their love language. You have your love language. Because you see, the challenge is this. I've had the opportunity to sit with people in rooms where they pour out their mind. I've had opportunities and privilege of letting people feel a form that we call adverse childhood experiences. And let me tell you something. If you keep beating your child, they have the tendency to have adverse childhood experiences. You don't want them to have that. You don't. See, most of the time, when you are beating a child, one of the reasons why I said it's about you is this, because you want to present the child to be a good boy, a good girl to your friends, to your relatives, simply because you want to look good to them. That's the reason. That's the simple reason. You want to look good, you want people to say, more call money, our parents say call money. I'm not saying it's not good for people to say more call money. Oh, he's good. But let me tell you the truth. More call money, when they get to their place of work, they still cheat, right? Despite all the one call money, in the exam they cheat, right? In their place of work, they step on other people just to get to the top. When they call money, they train that child. There are values and there are virtues. Do you want them to develop virtues, or you just want to put your own values on them so that the world will think you're training them, or you are adjusting their life? Every beating, every time you beat a child and you put a mark on their body, you are also putting a mark on their hearts. And the mark you are putting on their hearts is emotional damage. You are doing more damage to them than good. So, am I saying you shouldn't beat a child? Well, if you want, it's your choice. But I will say beating a child does not change the child. It's only do more damage, because the child will pretend and be a good child. But when they leave, they join the cult at the university, right? When they get to their place of work, they trample on other people just to be at the top. When they find themselves in the position of authority, they abuse power, they embezzle money. Those are the children you said you used Cain to shape. These people that you shape, yes, they will be able to lay their bed. Yes, they will be able to prostrate and greet people. Yes, they will be able to kneel down and say, welcome, good afternoon, ma. But when they leave, they will insult people behind them. They will backbite, they will fight, they will lie, they will cheat. They will do corruption. They will do so many things, unspeakable things. You don't want to do that. The last thing I want to talk about is we should love our children. We should show them love. Most things you'll be able to impact to your children is more of what you do and what they see you do. Let me give you an example. In my house, I don't know of any of my siblings that is stingy. I didn't see. I didn't see any of my siblings that is stingy. You know why? My parents are givers. While we're growing up, we don't have so much. My mom raised us alone. I've said this over and over. And my mom will cook. And after cooking, she will call people to bring their plates. And then she will put food in the plates of people, of neighbors. And then I'll be angry. Uh-uh, Mommy, where is my own? And then she will put my own for me and say, don't worry. And then at some point, she will have little to eat. And then I discover that the neighbors will come and they'll say, Mommy, thank you, ma, because we have not eaten since morning. Then she wasn't rich. She's an entrepreneur. She works so hard, but whatever she has, she share with people. For us, you don't have to. So giving comes naturally for every one of us in the family. My dad is the same way. My dad is is over 80, close to 90 or thereabouts. And he will still ask me for money. And I'm wondering, what did he want to use money for? Then I realized there are people that comes to greet him that he gives money. What am I saying? What you do is what your children imbibe. So your children will imbibe more of what you do than what you say. So when you have to beat a child every time, it's because you are not impacting them. I want to implore, schools. That's why you have a counselor in school. That's why you have, so many people who should be able to support. I don't know what school look like in Nigeria today, but there should be school counselor. If you see a child has the tendency to be troublesome or they are not doing well in their academics, send them to the counselor. Beating does not change a child, but if you correct them, if you counsel them, if you motivate them, they will change. People have different reasons for bringing their children to school. People wait to have some of these children. Some people wait 10 years. Some people, see, wait, let me tell you something. I can't spend 10,000 naira or $10,000 to do IVF. And I send that child to school and you're beating the child. I won't take it lightly with you. I tell you, I won't take it lightly with you. Now, so the question is, will I follow a child to school if a teacher beats them? Well, God bless the teacher. If if the child is not injured, but I don't think it is the best for school to beat a child. It's a problem on your part if your students are not behaving well. It's a problem on your part. It's something to pay attention to on your part. It's something to involve counselors in. It's something to motivate the children, not beating necessarily. Because if you keep beating them, you're not going to get the best result at the end of the day. When a child tell me that they beat them in school, one of the questions I ask is, what did you do? What did you do? What makes the teacher beat you? That's in the environment where beating is allowed, like in Nigeria. You can't beat a child here in America. And I'm sure it's the same thing in other Western world also. It's not an option in this place. And I want to implore the Nigerian schools as well. Stop beating the children. That's not the solution. I tell you, it's not the solution. You're not going to get the best from that child at the end of the day. You want to get the best from a child, motivate them. You want to get the best from a child, send them to counseling. You want to get the best from a child, be their friend. Be their friend. When you become their friend, you see, one thing that people don't know is this: there is power in love. When you love somebody, you don't want to hurt them, right? So when you embed love in the culture of your school, in the culture of each classroom, when you embed love, and as a teacher, as a principal, you also acted the same thing, the children will follow. Love is as simple as seeing paper on the floor as a teacher and pick it and put it in the dustbin. It's a culture. In Babcock University, when we're working on, I don't know if it's still the same till today, but one of the things, one of the culture that we have in my undergrad was when we see a paper on the floor, we're walking on the street of Babcock University, you pick that paper and put it in the dustbin. It's a culture. You don't see people, you look for them, you ask after them, right? We have the HOD. HOD, we ask, HOD knows everybody. They will ask after you. It's a culture. It's a leadership culture. It's a leadership value. So instead of beating the children, let us use motivation. Let us send them into counseling. Beating does not change a child because the time will come when you will not be able to beat them again. What will you use to correct them? I think that will be all for now. I want to go and sleep. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'll see you next time if I have something to share with you. Thank you, and have a blessed week. Bye for now.